Hello and welcome to the Southern Star's Coronavirus podcast. I'm the news editor, Siobhan Cronin.
And I'm Star Creative Manager, Niall O'Driscoll.
And each week we are talking to people at the centre of the pandemic in West Cork and beyond. We also take a look at that week's Southern Star newspaper and how our journalists throughout West Cork are covering the crisis and other news. This week we will also have some lovely music from a group of musicians in Beara who have come together to record a song which is very appropriate for our times. Also in this week's podcast, Ardfield beef farmer Tommy Moyles and Upton dairy farmer Vanessa Kiely O'Connor talked to Emma Connolly about the challenges facing the agri sector post-Covid-19 and how poor rural broadband connections have made their lockdowns more difficult. And farmers, let us have your thoughts about the agri issues of the day, along with your hopes and expectations for the future in the Southern Star Great West Cork Farming Survey. Complete the survey on our Facebook page or our website, and you could win 4 tickets to the Southern Star Farming Awards. But first now, let's take a look at this week's paper.
Yep, for sure. I have a copy here. I've happened to throw it on the floor.
Thanks for it. Right. So now on page 1, actually, the lead was actually prompted by last week's podcast, which was a special on the future of tourism in West Cork. So we've a nice piece there. It's been very positive, really, the reaction to it and also the conversation that we had. We had Neil Grant on from the Celtic Ross Hotel, and he's also involved with the Irish Hotels Federation. We had Christopher O'Sullivan, the newly elected TD, and we had Helen Collins from Taste of West Cork. They were really just saying how they're gearing up for the summer. They're not going to let it pass. They have a lot of work to do as regards social distancing and food offerings and safe, I suppose, areas for people to drink and eat and socialise, and also the activities that will be available in West Cork. But they did make the point, Niall, that West Cork could be one of the places that can really take this on board, because we have a lot of deserted beaches, we have a lot of walks, we have a lot of scenic areas that aren't necessarily too busy if you avoid the really obvious ones. There's an opportunity there.
The very reason that people would have come to West Cork all along is now even more the reason they'd want to come here, I suppose,
Exactly. So we go into that in a little bit more detail then on page 4. I think you were particularly taken with these little cafe pods that
I was looking at those. I don't know if you can, on the front page, there's an architect or designer in Kinsale, I think, has come up with a prototype pod that will be parked in, I think that it's that they'll go in parking spaces outside restaurants and cafes to allow for social distancing and safety in that regard. It's very interesting kind of an idea, isn't it? Very innovative idea.
It is, and I think we've seen something similar, kind of glasshouse versions in Amsterdam are beginning to take those on board. These are kind of wooden style pods with 3 seats across from 3, so a party of 6, maybe a family of 6 could sit together, and there'll be cafes during the day, little bar pods at night. And, I suppose Kinsale has always been a very innovative town, a bit like Kilty. They're always at the forefront with their ideas. So if you want to see a little bit more of that, there's 5 really good drawings from the architect inside the paper this week on how this might look in Kinsale. And they're also going to incorporate, if they go ahead with it, kind of in a sail effect for the canopies, which would be a lovely little touch there in the harbour area.
In Kinsale also, I see there's a lovely photograph on the top of the front page. Darkness into Light, the walk that would ordinarily have taken place last weekend, obviously couldn't this time around because of the pandemic. But I see emergency services from the Cork area generally. They did a drive-through in Kinsale to mark the occasion, and I think it's anything that puts the emergency services to the fore at the moment, it's a wonderful thing. And I suppose mental health, that Darkness into Light is all about mental health and Pieta House and stuff and whatever. Anything that highlights that, again, at the moment is very important.
Yeah, and we have more pictures of that inside as well, of various people doing little events around the region. It didn't go unmarked this year. It was just very different, I think, really. So as well as that, Niall, there's a sad story on page 1 about dead buzzards.
I see that, yeah. they're. I mean, to my way of thinking, they're these amazing birds. They're beautiful birds, but there was 23 of them killed by somebody or people, whatever, using a banned insecticide. And there's an investigation ongoing into that. It's a very unfortunate turn of events. I'm afraid
it is, yeah. Between Bandon and Timoleague, I think they were found. So yeah, so there's a major Garda probe, and the wildlife Parks and Wildlife Service are looking into it as well. So that's carried inside as well. More details on that. And then also inside, another really nice positive story is the launch of, I'm surprised it was the first one in Ireland, the first horse trail in Ireland is in Beara, and they've invested 83,000. Now this is really an example of people thinking outside the box, which is a very common phrase at the moment. But there's spectacular photographs there from Emma Cronin, where she went on the trail and took pictures of the views that people can see. You can bring your own horses, you can rent out from local stables, you can be accompanied, you can go on your own. It's a 17-kilometer trek along some of the most beautiful and certainly unspoiled and quiet scenery in Ireland. Brilliant. And that's really coming about at a perfect time for Beara. So they're really ahead of the pack there. So well done to Brilliant. Everyone in Beara.
There's a story on page 2, Siobhan, about local councillor Deirdre Kelly has something to say about the government talks at the moment.
That's right. I suppose everyone was just wondering if anyone was actually going to come out on the record and say that they had a problem with it. Now, Deirdre Kelly she's recently elected councillor. Well, in that she took Christopher O'Sullivan's seat when he was successful in the general election, and she issued a statement on Wednesday of this week saying, she feels that the talks with Fine Gael are going to destroy the party. I suppose to use the a well-worn phrase, they're going to burst up the party. And she's been backed up by Joe Carroll, who is a councillor in Skibbereen, and they're both just saying, look, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael were in a partnership for the last government, and it didn't go too well for either of them. And now that they're going to go back again with a similar proposal, they're both going to come out of this worse. But of course, she's only worried about the future of Fianna Fáil. But she's just saying, hang on a minute, maybe we need to think about this and not rush into this. And Joe Carroll is agreeing with her. So I suppose that's just an interesting angle there, where they're coming out and they're basically criticising their own leader. So as well as that, there's a down page story on page 2 about the churches are reopening from now. They're calling it a phased reopening from May 18th, and they have a plan to have just every third pew occupied, and it's really just personal prayers. So Father Tom Hayes and Enniskeane, who was a guest on this podcast a few weeks ago, he makes the point that people just want to get into the church and light a candle and say a prayer, and they couldn't even do that till now. So they're going to take that on board next week.
It's probably a thing that many people are probably missing more than anything else at the moment, is, like you say, just to be able to go in and say a prayer, that little bit of solace or whatever people get, it's very important, I suppose. Yeah,
absolutely. So moving on then, just another story, then other positives. A lot of positive stuff in the paper this week. I think we're kind of coming out of a little bit of the doom and gloom and seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. There's been a big boost there for Brogans and Bandon. Now, Bandon is a town that's had an awful lot of issues with shortage of school places and a lot of fear for the next few years that some kids may end up going further afield for secondary education. So there's a 10 million investment plan that was given the go-ahead this week. Tim Lombard, the Senator, announced it earlier this week, which would be a big boost to the school and a big extension plan there. Now, what struck me was that going forward, they may need to introduce some kind of restrictions as regards seating. So whether that'll be incorporated into any plans or not, I think it will be up to whoever gets the tender for that to see what they can do, because unless a cure or a vaccine has been found over the next year or two, I would imagine that schools are going to find it quite difficult to enforce social distancing. So things like big building projects could be totally revamped in the next few years.
And I see on the topic of schools, there's an interesting kind of feature piece on page 5 about the Leaving Certs, where Emma Connolly has spoken to a number of Leaving Certs from the area to get their opinions on well, I suppose the uncertainty of the thing all along, and it would be leaving cert season right now, I suppose. It's
That's
obviously
right.
not, you know.
Yeah, she's actually spoken to 12 students around West Cork,
Mm,
and interestingly enough, to every single one of them has agreed that this was the right decision. Now, if you were
sure.
listening to Liveline in the last week or two, you might be surprised. We had such a unanimous response from a random choice of students in West
Hmm.
Cork. They all said, "Look, it's not what they would have wanted, but in the circumstances, they couldn't see another
Sure.
option, and they're just glad, really, to just have a decision made,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if it's not great.
It,
At
it
least they
was
can get on."
it was the uncertainty of it all along, I think, was what was getting to people, really, wasn't it?
Absolutely, especially when you're trying to study and you don't know what date, how long you have, if it's ever going to happen.
There's no schedule, there's no focus, there's no, yeah,
Absolutely, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I found it very, very difficult. So
And I see there's an issue with well, and we'll use the term boy racers, dangerous driving, kind of donuts on the roads and things again.
that's right.
It
It's
seemed
just
to have
been
died off
ongoing.
for a while.
Yes, it has been an ongoing issue in West Cork for the last few years, but it has come to the fore again now. But the fear now at the moment, never mind the marks on the road and unsightly marks and unsightly noises, is that A, they're not supposed to be gathering in large numbers.
Hmm.
And we've had instances, according to the Gardaí, of where 18 or 19 cars are gathering up together. And also, a lot of people are out on the roads now walking, and a lot of
Sure.
people who aren't, it sounds bizarre, but a lot of people who aren't used to walking on the roads are now out and about, and may not be that aware of cars or corners, or they might be unused to walking on particular back roads. So Sergeant James O'Donovan, who's the crime prevention officer in West Cork, is just making the point that it's a bit of a perfect storm here. We really need to try and get this under control. And if you do know anybody going out, doing this, just maybe have a quiet word with them, because it's
Sure.
it's it's dangerous. Carry on at the best of times.
Dangerous at the best of times, and now again at the moment, there's a whole other layer to it.
Absolutely. And
Interesting piece about what we're buying at the moment. A feature
oh
piece,
yes,
the Emma Connolly looked at it again, because of the pandemic again. People aren't getting, a lot of shops are closed, but the things that people are prioritizing in terms of what they're buying, whether they're ordering it from their local shop or whatever. And I think things like vitamins seem to rank highly on the list,
yeah, I
which
was surprised with that. I mean, I suppose at all times people like their vitamins, but maybe people are really trying to boost their immune systems now at
sure.
the moment. I suppose the obvious ones are flour and eggs. We kind of knew about that, and
Hmm.
yeast. One that stood out for me was Adam Walsh in Fields saying that chickpeas, there was a massive run
Oh,
on chickpeas in the early weeks, and he thinks people were testing out different
I
recipes. My own theory is that a lot of more teenagers were at home, and there's a
right.
big surge to vegetarianism and veganism in the last year or two. I think they're all making chickpea curries myself.
And yeah, I think there was definitely. I know we're all talking about banana bread these days, but there was definitely a recipe for some sort of a chickpea stew went around early on in the pandemic, and that's probably
That's a bit
people
it.
obviously liked it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, a favorite topic of mine, anyway. I see there's a piece about a lot of illegal dumping and dog poo.
Yes, which I suppose kind of interconnected.
Yeah.
We've two separate stories. One is just, well, we've been carrying this now for a long time. In fact, for years now, we've been trying to keep tabs on the illegal dumping in West Cork, because as a tourism area, it's something I think that is really, really important to get a handle on. Because one thing you do not want is to get a name for being a dirty area. Your tourism industry is down the Swanee and all the jobs with it.
And this isn't necessarily the throwing the bags over the ditch kind of dumping. It's dumping at bins or on the streets and in towns and things, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, we've 4 pictures there that actually just came in this week of, overflowing bins, bags in bags left beside bins that hadn't
Mm,
been emptied, people's domestic. Well, it's actually, there was one picture of just cans. So, someone
mm,
having a bit of a party and getting rid of the debris afterwards. A box of bottles left in Lochine,
yeah.
bizarre,
Mm,
and then just some rubbish left on the street. And I also have a fear that there's so many gloves. I'm starting to see an awful lot of plastic gloves
yeah.
abandoned on the street,
Yeah.
you know, and plastic is going to be a really big issue, I think, in the next few years for us to sort with all the, you know, millions and millions of pieces of PPE that will be discarded. But yes, you mentioned dog poo, and there's a story on page 16 from Kieran O'Mahony about fines and people being prosecuted, and the fact that there's been a bit of an upsurge in dog poo.
There does seem to be, yeah. I suppose people are walking more because they're, you know, getting out for their bit of exercise and whatever. But there does seem to be an increase in the amount of dog poo left on the footpaths, and I've seen it myself personally in quite close proximity to those, you know, those little things you get where they have the poo bags that you can take the bag within 20 feet of that, and you're looking at poo on the footpath.
Well, my own personal bugbear is people who take those bags, use them, and then throw them in the ditch. I see that all the time.
Hang them from a tree or something.
Anywhere you find those, you'll find the bags full somewhere in a ditch. So, I mean, it's just, you'd be better off just throwing the elements into the ditch without the plastic bag, if that's what you're going to do. So I suppose there's no accounting for some people's stupidity.
I know, but anyway.
Quite honest. So in life now there's a big feature in the life section this week that I think you'd be particularly interested in.
Yeah, something that would be quite close to my own heart for somebody who picks up a guitar and plays it every once in a while. There's a piece on just the difficulties that live music venues are facing at the moment. And Emma Connolly has done a very interesting piece where she's spoken to Sam McNichol from Connolly's, Ray Blackwell from the Bearas in Clon, and Joe O'Leary from Leavis's in Ballyhob. There'll be three fairly iconic music venues. They're known across the country. And I mean, they've come to a standstill at the moment. Now, the Bearas have a very interesting initiative, which we referred to previously, where they're doing sitting room to sitting room sessions. They're online sessions where they're getting the likes of Liam O'Wainley, all sorts, John Spillane.
Yeah, it was a good one, yeah.
That's right. And it's a very difficult position for them to be in, though, because, I mean, it's their bread and butter ordinarily, plus the fact it's a great outlet for people to get out, to socialise and whatever, to go and see some live music, and it's just not happening at the moment.
Yeah. And I think Sam McNichol even made the point, he just went offline for 2 months because he was just getting so depressed at the they've put a lot of money into Connolly's, and he was saying, you know, the timing just couldn't have been worse for them. They were just about to reap the benefits of it. But at the same time, there is a bit of optimism there, but you know they're going to go online, a lot of these venues. There's probably a way maybe of monetizing that down the road, and also they'll probably have to look at social distancing when they do reopen. But you know, they're thinking again outside the box.
Yes,
and there is optimism there, so it's not an overall doom gloom piece. So you know, it's definitely worth a read.
From it. Yeah, I mean, they're acknowledging their difficulties, but as you say, they're certainly looking at the options.
Thanks, Niall. And don't forget, if you can't get to the shops, you can subscribe online by going to thesouthernstarTV and clicking on the e-paper tab at the top of the page, or call the office on 028 21200 for a postal copy to be sent out to you. Here's Emma Connolly with this week's podcast interview.
In this week's podcast, I'm looking at how the farming industry, like all other sectors globally, has been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. To discuss this, I'm joined by Farmers Journal columnist Tommy Moyles, who's also a beef farmer in Ardfield, and award-winning dairy farmer Vanessa Kiely O'Connor, who's based in Upton. Welcome, Tommy and Vanessa. Thanks for joining us for this week's podcast. I suppose, guys, before we start talking about some of the more negative projections for agriculture in a post-COVID world, in some ways farming actually has come out as a very positive story throughout all of this. And it's shown just how resilient it is. I mean, the world literally has ground to a halt. Planes have stopped. Manufacturing in many cases has stopped. But agriculture has continued. You know, cows were milked, the food production continued. And I think personally what's come out of this is that it's shown just how important agriculture is to the rural and the national economy. Any thoughts on that? I guess, Tommy, how have things been for you in Ardfield since lockdown hit?
And they were okay. Just as lockdown came in, I was probably heading into week 2 or 3 of calving. So it was great. I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I could focus on that. I think there's great credit due to the co-ops and the suppliers, like not the hardware, but those dealing with farmer orders. There was plans put in place very early, and especially the likes of Carberry. It doesn't affect me, but you'd be aware of it going to the local co-ops. The plans were put in place well ahead of the lockdown, so people were getting used to it. I think farmers had to get more organised. It wasn't the case of, I'll drive down to the co-op if I'm missing either a bag of ration or a few nails or whatever. You had to plan in advance and reduce the amount of times you went there. Not meeting people was strange. Contractors coming onto the farm with sorry or that. You kind of had to phone your order, or you had to shout a bit louder. You're observing the distance.
And Tommy, what did you make about the kind of positive story that's coming out about Irish agriculture throughout all of this?
I think it's not just a once in a generation, it's a once in all our lifetimes opportunity in terms of what we see with the reduced air pollution. That was a big standout. I mean, emissions is a big topic in the last few years in ag, and we've seen now transport was stopped pretty much for a number of weeks, so we'll have the data from that. So ag had its chance to see how it was as an individual sector there, how that compared. Food obviously was a priority. I mean, we all remember back to the first week or two where there was queues and panic buying, and all the supermarkets and retail, the wholesalers were saying that the supply chain is okay. There's probably a small little crack in the last week or so appearing in the meat plants. That's been dealt with. You had the controversy over keelings. I think a positive from all that is it's shown society the value of the food chain, but it's also shown that it's probably not as valued as farmers would like it to be. There's a lot of low income in terms of employees at plant level or at farm level. So that's maybe something that people will become more aware of, as there's a different value placed on food.
Interesting. Vanessa, how have things been for you? You're running a fairly serious dairy operation in Upton. How have things been any different since the pandemic hit?
Well, so look, I suppose on a positive note, the farming year is going well. The cows calve down well, and the grass is growing, and we can't have any complaints that way. It's business as usual on farm. I mean, of course, we have all the changes that COVID have brought about. We're very lucky to have all the services that we use available to us. I mean, it has just been essential. It really is an essential service to have. So getting used to the social distancing. I mean, as a dairy farmer where you have the milk lorry coming in, of course we have biosecurity measures and footbaths and, clean surfaces as a standard procedure on farms anyway. So that wasn't a whole lot to get adjusted to. But it was just, that keeping that distance, with the one person that you might meet every second day. I suppose also, it's AI season, and so my technician, he gives me a text 5 minutes in advance before he comes, so I just make sure that the cows are in the crush and everything is available to him so he can go. I suppose another little thing that would have impacted was I would have milk recorded at the end of March, with my milk recording guy coming to the farm where that had stopped. I did my milking through the milk meters, so I had to adapt to something new there. Of course, you have like the online discussion group, something we never thought would be as successful. I mean, once you have the right connection. Yeah, so very well. I think it's very well organised, and everybody has a turn to speak. It turned out very well. Of course, you like to be on farm as well to gain the experience of really there's normally a host farmer on each farm for the discussions. But look, we're making do with the situation as it is, but we're all staying in touch and keeping on top of things. I suppose, well, I use the Tagish Advisory Service in Clonakilty, and as part of my spring, I had to take soil samples. So I was able to deliver those and leave them outside the door. they were sent off, got my derogation application sorted and my basic payments sorted. I had, there was no obstacle getting those services done. I suppose, one of the funny things is like, queuing at your co-op to, get in. And so, but, we're all in the same boat. And, no doubt, all the co-op retail centres, I go to Bandon Co-op, the staff are just fantastic, and the whole farming sector really has rallied, and it shows our resilience. We're able to adapt. We're the most adaptable sectors going. We're used to challenges. We're used to, the goalposts moving regularly. So, I'm very proud to be farming, and I'm very proud of everybody that, delivers a service to us,
That's,
so
that's
a lot of positives, yeah.
That's really well said, to say that you're so proud. Of course, there's no getting away from some of the negative kind of projections that are kind of coming out at the moment. Tommy, from your own Farmers Journal, they commissioned some research that found the farming industry could lose up to 2/3 of its annual income because of COVID-19. Beef farmers, they're saying prices are down by 17%. Dairy, the dairy sector, they've said that the average 78 cow dairy farmer could lose €24,000 or 37% of their income for the year. So it doesn't make for great reading. I mean, having said that, though, there's always there can be a bit of doom and gloom surrounding the farming industry. So I guess what I'd like to ask you is there some real fear amongst yourselves and your fellow farmers now, or do you think we'll rally again?
Yeah, I suppose that's the most extreme side, is bad news and doom and gloom. It's a perennial of farming too, or certainly a significant majority of farmers. Those prices. I mean, we saw when McDonald's and Supermax shut their doors.
Yes.
That was probably the most dramatic effect on beef price. You saw the price for the dry cow sector falling by 50 to 60 cents a kilo. And the prime beef then was about half of that, working in around a fall of 20 or 30 cents. We've good news just come in the last hour or so that McDonald's they'll be opening six of their drive-thrus next week, and phasing all the UK and Irish stores back and drive-thru by early June. So
that
has it's a positive, and there was whisperings around that a few weeks ago, and on the back of that, cow price has risen 20 to 30 cents, and the last 3 weeks beef price across the board has risen, so that's a positive. I suppose Vanessa will cover the milk side more. Going back to the journal piece, the most extreme piece of the economics, statistics that Professor Michael Wallace from UCD put out was that it could cost the industry up to $1 billion. Looking at the more moderate side is 600 million, but again, that's taking the more extreme side of the shutdown. There's a lift in the beef side of things. There's a lift coming now with a few countries coming out of lockdown. But the concern is that the stay cuts, which would be the higher price cuts, that restaurants won't be opening at the level that they were prior to the lockdown.
So as you say, a bit of caution that it might not be as bad as they fear. So then Vanessa, sorry Tommy, go ahead.
I suppose you always kind of have to plan for the worst in farming anyway.
Yeah.
So you just have to be that bit cautious. And I suppose that there's low cost loans have been bought out as well. So that's a positive to be taken. So it won't be as bad as was predicted.
And then I guess for dairy, Vanessa, it's about fears for the milk price, really, isn't it? That it won't take a hit.
Absolutely. I mean, concerns inside the farm gate is always going to be about milk price, but there are so basically, if I have a farm project that I was going to get stuck into, like finishing a shed, I'm going to postpone that this year. There's certain things as farmers we can take on board and maybe just try and keep a little bit of funds for just in case things go pear-shaped. I'd be the realistic side of things is we export over 90% of dairy, and we were always going to have an issue surrounding Brexit. So this COVID is another, added issue. Now, if you look at what's happening in England, where they've had to spill milk because they can't, their factories, their people are sick, they can't process that. Whereas here, the approach that was taken, it really, you have to be very proud of all the stakeholders who came on board to ensure that that wouldn't happen. So we're still producing the finest quality produce from our grass-based system. And we are now depending on the people that market our product abroad to continue getting that message out there. They, their jobs depend on our jobs, so they're working as equally hard to sell our products.
I'm actually glad, Vanessa, I'm really glad you brought that up, because you've been involved in a really exciting international marketing campaign which tells the really unique story of West Cork's grass-fed farms. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I suppose Ornua reached out and said that they were looking for farmers to take part in a little video campaign that we could tell our story, so that their customers could get a real feel of what dairy farming is like in Ireland. And I suppose I was delighted. I'm not only the only West Cork person, I know Aidan McCarthy back west, he took part in it. And like his clip is, connected with the cheese side of things. My clip is connected with the butter side of things. But, I suppose no better people to tell the real story than a farmer. And if I can, by doing that, are helping this marketing team to go around the world and show what we do. And we should be extremely proud of what we do, because we take for granted that cows eat grass and we don't think any different in this country. But you go to other countries, they can't do that. So really what we have is a very artisan product. And our marketing people that are out there selling it abroad, know we have that advantage, so we can, to support them as best we can,
Yeah, and as you say, to get our unique story out there.
But it's the real story. Where can, West Cork especially, our cows can genuinely be out for 300 days of the year. There's no making up a real story, so it's good that we can tell that story,
Yeah, honest, straight from the heart. You've told it really well. It's very nice. If anyone wants to check it out, it's online, and just look up Ornua. So I guess I'm also curious, Vanessa, just to hear how things are going for you both personally in lockdown. I know I have never done so much farming in my life, and I'm not even a real proper farmer. I guess we're all spending more time at home now, and I'm being called on to block cows and shift fences and all the rest. So it's a nice time, and it's I think it's lots of farming families have more help than ever at the moment, and we're hopefully making some nice memories. But it's obviously not without its challenges as well, let's be honest. So Vanessa, for example, you're sitting in your car there, and you have your office. And you've been telling me that Wi-Fi, you've got two secondary school going children, that Wi-Fi can be a bit of a challenge for you all there. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, it has been a nightmare, and it is a nightmare for the whole of rural Ireland, really. We really need to bring broadband everywhere now. My business depends on me having internet connection, and today is a sunny day, and I still have to sit in my car to connect it to, because my daughter is on a Zoom call to her school.
Yeah.
So we both can't draw on the same internet. So I have my phone data on my phone that we're talking with, because I can't link in there and affect her school. Now, we've had the added relief of the decision being made on the Leaving Cert, because I have a son in Leaving Cert. So, there for the past couple of months, there was 2 of them online daily. And, it was quite stressful. Like anything we submit, if we have to deal with the Department of Agriculture, they now require us to do everything online, even if it's registering your calves, everything, I did the calf investment scheme with application there in January, but I had to upload everything. I literally had to drive a mile up the road on a wet day to get a proper connection. So, there are challenges, and I suppose
there are little things that will push you over the edge, really, if you're already having a difficult day, aren't they? And as you say, it's not just you, this is the story of so many households.
Absolutely, and that's where rural children are at a disadvantage, even education-wise, you know. So some days they haven't been able to connect, you know. So people may be in a town where they have a better connection. They're at an advantage. Plus, I'm trying, like I say, I'm trying to run a business. There's other people that aren't in farming sector that are trying to work from home as well from rural areas, and they're having the same issues, you know. So, as far as the children helping out on the farm, because they were still at school, I didn't get them out as much as possible. On the other side of it, so my husband works at the airport, and we all know that planes aren't running now at the moment. So he now is on reduced hours. You know, we're no different to any other family. We have a mortgage, and we have Finton, who's going to be going to college in September. So we have all these, you know, we're at that stage of life where, you know, we still have a lot of commitments to keeping our finances right. So, I mean, when we say it's so important that the milk price stays up, for me personally, it has to happen, like, you know what I mean? And also, I suppose, you know, for my husband, he doesn't know whether he's going to have job security if COVID goes the wrong way around, you know what I mean? Now, on the opposite side, it's been great to have him home because we're able to get stuck into jobs, a two-man job that normally if I'm here on my own, I have to wait for him to have a day off to get stuck into. So there's been pluses and minuses, but there will be an ongoing, I suppose, financial worry going forward, college, mortgage, all these things, what's going to happen into the future. So on a personal level, that's how things are affecting me, you know.
That's very honest. That's very honest to share all of that, Vanessa. I think lots of people are kind of hiding behind this. Oh, we're still having great fun, maybe, and going for that walk. There are financial and you know impacts out there for most schools now. And Tommy, you're in a most beautiful part of Westmore, on the edge of the sea there. So it couldn't have been a better place to be in lockdown. And how are things in the household?
Things are good. Like, half of my 2 km radius was at sea, so that kind of that limited things a little bit. Again, a bit like Vanessa, connectivity was a big issue. I lost phone reception for the best part of 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks. I missed out on engaging with our discussion groups. We had two calls, I think, but I missed them because I had no reception. Prior to I ended up changing network. But prior to that, I had to go up to the shed or drive a mile up the road to get reception. That was gone. And where that was really, really stressful was at peak calving, not everything going your way, and then you need to call a vet.
Of course.
You know, you take things for granted when you have the phone in your hand and you can just dial them. But you're up in the shed and you have to run down home and ask for someone's phone. Or irony of ironies, I discovered on my trips to Clonakilty during the lockdown that the only place that I could actually make phone calls was outside the vets. So wasn't ideal to have to call them. Not that I did that, but it was extremely frustrating. And yeah, it's certainly something for politicians to look at, the connectivity in rural Ireland, and it's going to be much more important going forward, because I think the legacy of this lockdown is we're going to see huge changes in terms of people working from home. I know that Farmers Journal, the rest of the staff haven't been in the office since March, and I'd imagine that some of them would like to stay that way. So I'd be concerned for people that rent out office space long term. But the other side of it is, you know, when there's no meetings on, and people are using the likes of Skype or Zoom, it's taking less time. If you're involved in any of the farm organisations, you can have a meeting and you could be done in an hour, where you don't have to drive to Portlaoise or Dublin or Limerick. So that's a major saver. So we'll see what the legacy is.
You missed out on the cup of tea and chat then, Tommy.
You would miss on that. For now it is what it is, and it will look, you'll have to bring things in for that social element, because to try and work as a team or on a board level, you do need that human contact, and you do need to get to know the people a bit better. For now,
there's definite time saving benefits, all right, yeah, for sure.
But we could live in much worse places, and I think one of the big saviors from all this is that this happened when it happened. If we were facing this going to November, December, January, and it's dark at 4 and 5 o'clock in the evening, I think that would be much more challenging, particularly for people that are living on their own, or that would be
isolation. Yeah, mental health. Oh, yeah, we did get lucky on the time of the year.
very,
sure.
very.
So yeah. So Vanessa and Tommy, thanks so much. I think we both raised some really interesting points there. Lovely chatting to you both, and I guess nothing for it but to plow on for another week and see how we all do. Thank you so much.
Here now we have this week's musical treat. Apart but Still Together is the title of the catchy tune penned by well-known musician Pat Higgins. Pat has written the song in honour of frontline workers and enlisted the help of local musicians in Beara to record it. Richie Hodges made a video of the group on the sandbreakers on the local beach, and he has included some breathtaking images of Beara. So enjoy.
Even though we're apart, we're still together. We can be best, whatever the weather. Even though we're apart, we're still together. We can be best, whatever the weather. Started some far off land. Now it's right here in the palm of our hand.
Thank you for listening to the Southern Star Coronavirus Podcast. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our podcast, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Acast, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.